Hello all and welcome to The Big Story, a daily news show where we talk about the hottest topics of today right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Kimberly Gell coming to you live from the Straits Times, and we are streaming on YouTube and Facebook, so do leave us a comment, like and share it with your friends, as well as hit the bell to be told whenever we go live. I will be joined by a couple of my newsroom colleagues today to discuss what got you talking today. Our first story: 3 popular international schools in Singapore allow expatriate families to secure places for their children, largely paid for by companies looking to attract expats to work here. With me to talk about this is Amelia, our education correspondent. Hello. Could you explain this phenomenon to us? How do they do this?
So different schools call it different names. Tanglin Trust School calls it a placement right scheme. Singapore American School has a guaranteed placement program. And United World College calls it a nominee program. So usually it's the firms that are paying for the places in these schools, and the schools are very clear to note that these are not donations, but more of like purchasing of places or subscriptions. So for instance, in UWC, the firms would buy a subscription for a place in the school, and this would be valid for like about 8 years. And in those 8 years, the firm can nominate different employees' children to be on that spot. So overall, the child also still needs to meet the school's entry criteria, like academic ability, English language proficiency. So it's not entirely a free pass to get into the school.
Although it is easier.
It is easier, yeah. And the schools also have waiting lists, so because these are very popular schools, and the firms can also pay to push up or bump up a nominee's position on these waiting lists so that you are nearer the top and you can stand a better chance of getting into the school.
I see. So what would you say is sort of the rationale behind this?
So the rationale is mainly a business decision because the number of places on these schemes is small. They're very limited seats, although the schools didn't want to disclose how many places they would give out every year. But it's about attracting global talent, and the companies know that for families, for parents, a huge factor in considering whether to relocate your whole family is whether you can get a good quality education outside your home country. And so they tie up with these very popular international schools. There are top 4 schools in Singapore that are very popular among the expat parents. And they are known by parents for their high academic rigor, their high IB scores, and good teaching programs and good teachers to offer such schemes. And so that's the rationale, is really to attract the employees to work here, and to move them, you need to move their whole families as well.
Right. And all parents sort of care for their kids, and especially for their education, right? So, and I think Singaporean parents also care a lot for their kids. So does this happen in local schools?
So it's quite a different picture over at our local schools, which they don't allow any buying of places, whether by companies or by individuals, whether by local or foreign families. And admission for schools here is entirely by merit, at least for secondary school level. Whereas in international schools, they are largely free to decide what their own entry criteria is. Yeah, and having said that, there are local schools that are very popular, and maybe 10-20 years ago, you would have heard of cases where parents have gone to great lengths to try and get their kids into desirable schools. So they would have paid a certain sum of money, or a school would have asked them for donations. And I've heard of some of these cases even now, which have happened a while back.
Right.
But so this would have happened maybe when the children miss the cutoff point by a bit, or are appealing in that process, they would have been asked for donations.
The schools ask, if you donate, we'll let them go in, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know how explicit the asking is, but there's this implicit understanding between the parent and the principals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so when I also asked the Singapore Hokkien Hui Kwan, which oversees some of these Chinese schools that are quite popular, like Tao Nan, they did acknowledge that when last time when school admission was purely decided by the school management, such practices could have happened.
Right.
Even though now things have changed, and MOE overseas centrally conducts the whole school admission process, whether for primary school or secondary school.
Right.
So all these practices are no longer allowed and forbidden.
I see. So it's all behind us now.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to know more about this story, do head on to www.straitstimes.com where you can access Amelia's full story. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us today. So our second story, researchers have found that raising the Central Provident Fund, that's CPF, contribution rates for older workers to put them on par with those of younger workers could help them save between $31,000 and $145,000 more by the time they retire. So here to share more with us is Assistant Business Editor Chen Hui. Hello.
Hi.
So could you break these numbers down for us?
Okay. So currently, the CPF contribution rates stand at 37% for workers up to 55 years old. After that, it progressively drops. So we'll go from 37 to 26% to 16.5%. And when you hit 65 and over, it is 12.5%.
Okay.
So the researchers at the Institute of Policy Studies, they calculated that if the employer and employee contribution rates were to be back to 37% in total, workers can save additional savings. Depending on their income, it could go from anywhere between $31,000 to $145,000. Fairly significant.
Yes.
So they say that restoring this CPF contribution rates could bring about certain benefits, such as, of course, better retirement adequacy, but also the other side of the coin is that it may encourage older workers to stay in their job a bit longer.
Right, and keep working. And you've mentioned this a little bit, but it involves employers as well, right?
Yes.
So are companies sort of naturally worried about these CPF increasing contributions?
So when it comes to CPF, usually companies would be concerned, and reasonably so. In this case, the researchers have done the sums, and it would cost employers about $800 million in the first year if they were to implement this scenario. And at this time, companies are also grappling with other challenges such as trade war between the US and China, digitalization efforts locally.
Right.
Yeah, and also, some technology sector disruption.
A lot of things are happening right now.
Yes. So we have to keep in mind that this remains a proposal for now. So while the Manpower Ministry said that it has noted the recommendations, there is currently a separate work group comprising government, employers, unions, which is sort of looking at all these issues, including CPF and how it affects retirement savings.
Right.
It is set to release its recommendations later this year. So we'll hear more from them, hopefully.
So keep us posted.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned all these issues and all these challenges that they're facing. So do you think, with all that in mind, companies are going to start to avoid hiring older workers?
It's hard to say, although, as an aging society, companies may eventually, have no choice. It is going to get harder and harder for them to be selective about workers based on their age. Well, I guess if they were to look at it from the positive side, it could be a good way for them to retain older workers. Yeah, and for them to pass on the experience to the younger generation as well.
So think positive, think on the right side of the coin.
Yes.
So I'm sure a lot of you guys have opinions on this since it's got to do with CPF. So do leave your comments down below. And thanks, Chen Hui, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thanks.
And those were our top stories of the day. If you'd like more news and videos, do head on to www.straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Kimberly. Thank you for watching The Big Story, and we'll see you tomorrow.